If you're new to screen printing or thinking about getting into screen printing, the process of making a screen and the concept of the screen printing darkroom can seem a little scary. Hey, I'm Ryan from Ryonet and screenprinting.com, and in this instructional video, I'm going to walk you through the process of making a screen and show you it's not really that scary. It's actually pretty easy. Let's start by talking about the screen itself. You see, it's not all about the press, the ink, or the squeegee that goes into actually making a good shirt. This is screen printing, and to make a good finished product, we need to make a good screen first. Here, we are using a new aluminum frame with a 156 mesh screen on it. The screen is tight, which means it has good tension, and that will help the ink transfer easier onto the shirt. The 156 mesh count refers to how many threads cross per square inch. And this is a great medium mesh, meaning the holes of the mesh are wide enough to let ink through on light or dark shirts, but also tight enough to hold a good amount of detail in your print. This is the most popular screen we see screen printers use. The screen making process starts by cleaning your mesh. We use a product called the degreaser, which is essentially a soap that's specially formulated for cleaning mesh. You want to clean your screen to remove the dust, dirt, and oil, or if it's been used, leftover ink residue from it. Spray on the degreaser, scrub it with a clean scrub brush, and then spray it off in a sink, bathtub, or washout sink like you see here to thoroughly rinse the screen. Next, let your screen dry in a clean area, not a dirty one, since you just went through the trouble to clean it. After your screen mesh is dry, it's time to coat your screen with emulsion. Emulsion is a light-sensitive product that is developed along with your screen image during the exposure process, which I'll explain shortly. Since emulsion is UV light sensitive, it's important that we work with it in a light-safe environment like you see here in our darkroom. Now, making a light-safe environment is actually pretty easy to do. You don't have to make a complex darkroom to expose the screen. Simply use a yellow bug light or UV safe light like this one. Turn off all the lights, shut the curtains or blinds, turn on the yellow light, boom, light safe environment. You will need to stay in this environment until after the exposure and development process is complete. To coat the screen with emulsion, use a tool called the scoop coater. There are many different types of emulsion, but if you're just getting started, it's best to use a dual cure emulsion because they're easier to expose and much more forgiving during the exposure process. You'll want to fill your scoop coater about halfway with emulsion, just like this. Bring the scoop coater to the bottom of a dry screen starting on the flat side of the screen, about 1 inch from the frame. I firmly press it against the frame and tilt the coater up to allow the emulsion to pool up against the mesh. Then I move the scoop coater firmly up to the top of the screen about 1 inch from the frame. Next, I slide the emulsion back into the coater and saw off the remainder for a clean separation. This can take some practice to get used to. The key is a firm grip on the scoop coater, pressing it firmly against the mesh like you see here, and then hearing that zip as you move it slowly to the top of the mesh. The great thing about it is if you mess up, you can always do it again like I showed you to clean up your mistake. Next, flip the frame over and upside down and do the same thing on the inside of the screen. This side can be a little tricky because of the frame itself. You should always coat the outside or flat side first and the inside second because you want your emulsion to sit on the outside of your mesh, not the inside. After the screen is coated, dry it flat side down, either on a rack or just put some blocks on a table. It's best to have a fan blowing on it in a dry and clean environment. After your screen is dry to the touch and no longer sticky, it's time to expose your image onto it. To expose your screen, you'll need a film positive of your image. A film positive is a transparency film printed with the positive of your image, meaning that whatever you see on your film will be printed onto your shirt. On this film, you can see how dark or opaque the ink is. This is very important because the goal of a positive film is to block out the light during exposure. If you're using a home inkjet printer and not a printer made for printing black film positives, you may need to print out 2 copies and stack them on top of each other so your image is opaque enough to expose the screen. Next, we tape the film on the outside or flat side of the frame to ensure proper alignment. You want your film placed in the center of the screen in the top third of the image area, but not directly in the center unless you're using a larger print. Here we're using a template that makes this process a little easier. If you're doing multiple colors, it's important to place the film in the exact spot on every frame so they match up once you get on press. I should be able to look through the inside of the screen and see the image as it would read on the t-shirt. If it was backwards, it would be printed backwards on the shirt. Now expose it. You can use an exposure table, a DIY bulb, or even a 500 watt halogen light. Each light will have different amounts of UV and take a different amount of time. This exposure using a vacuum exposure unit takes about 5 minutes. One other thing that's very important with the exposure process is to ensure your film and your screen mesh have a good positive contact. That means the mesh, the film, and the glass of the exposure unit are sandwiched together, which you see the vacuum table doing here. There are other ways to accomplish that, which we can help with, by the way. Also, we're great at figuring out exposure times if that's something you need help with. After your screen is exposed, it's important to develop the screen before taking it out of your light-safe environment. If your washout area is in a light-safe environment, which ours is, you can wash out your screen and develop it in the sink. However, if it's not, you can use a spray bottle in your light-safe environment and wash it out outside. Simply get the screen wet on both sides and allow it to soak for about 1 minute. As you can see, our image is already starting to develop. Once developed, you can walk the screen out to a lit area or to your washout sink to wash out the image with a hose. Ensure your image is fully washed out. If you see a little emulsion colored slime coming into your image area, this means you need to expose your screen longer the next time. Once washed out, you can dry your screen in front of a fan or in the sun. Both ways work great. Well, now you know how to expose a screen. You see, it wasn't that hard. Alright guys, thanks a lot for watching. We hope you enjoyed it, and be sure to check out Ryonet on YouTube for more awesome screen printing videos.